time. Tony Freeman, he's in our RAM group, Risk Analysis and Mitigation, and he's going to be talking to you about a very important reliability guideline that came out just a couple months ago. It was the Security Guideline on voluntary physical security protection best practices. It has some really great actionable advice in there. Tony, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How about myself?
I can hear you. The floor is all yours. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brian. So good afternoon, everybody. Today, we're just going to walk through the NERC Voluntary Physical Security Protection Best Practices released back in March of 2026. So the goal of the session is pretty simple. It's just to explain how organizations can use risk-based approach to strengthen physical security at entity facilities. So we're going to walk chapter by chapter through the document and kind of describe what it's trying to accomplish, but more importantly, what it means for operational security programs. So the guideline is designed to help organizations take a structured, risk-based approach to physical security. So at its core, it's balancing three things: threats, vulnerabilities, and consequences. And it also emphasizes a layered defense strategy of detect, deter, delay, and respond. And ultimately, it aims to help organizations make cost-effective decisions that reduce real risk, not just check boxes for compliance. Can we move on to the next one? So the document is intentionally structured in a logical progression. It starts with a foundational knowledge, understanding threats and assessments. Then it moves into risk-based decision-making, which is basically the core of the framework. And then finally, it transitions into implementation, maturity, equipment, response planning, and program management. So the key idea here is that good security doesn't start with controls. It starts with first understanding the risk before you implement the controls. Next slide. So chapter 1 sets the foundation by defining who the adversary is. So the key shift here is moving from thinking about accidental or opportunistic threats to recognizing motivated, capable, and intentional adversaries. So these threat actors plan, they research, and they adapt. The key takeaway here is if your defenses are based on outdated threat assumptions, they will fail against modern adversaries. Next slide. So chapter 2 is where the document shifts from understanding threats to actually measuring our exposure to them. It establishes 3 core assessment areas. So threat assessments, which identify who might target us and how; vulnerability assessments, which look at where our defenses may be weak; and physical security posture assessments, which evaluate how effective our overall security program really is. So the key point here is that security decisions should not be based on assumptions or checklists. This chapter emphasizes using structured, repeatable methodologies like design basis threats or the VISA program to create a consistent, data-driven view of risk. So at a high level, this chapter is about building a reliable foundation for decision-making. It provides the inputs needed for everything that follows: prioritization, investment, and control selection. So if you're taking anything away from chapter 2, is pretty much this: if your assessments are incomplete or inaccurate, your entire security strategy will be misaligned. Next slide. So moving into chapter 3, once we understand the risk, the next step is prioritization. So chapter 3 focuses on establishing a criticality or a criticality rating, which is basically understanding which assets matter the most to you. Not all facilities are created equal. The goal is to assign levels of criticality based on operational impact if they were to be compromised, and then align security measures accordingly. So the key takeaway for chapter 3 is you do not protect everything exactly the same. There's no cookie cutter solution. You protect based on the impact. Next slide. Moving into chapter 4, which is really the core of the entire document. This is where everything kind of comes together. So it's discussing the threats, vulnerabilities, consequences, and costs. The goal is to make decisions that are defensible, prioritized, and aligned with organizational risk appetites. This is especially important in resource-constrained environments where you cannot mitigate every single risk that you may have. So the question becomes, where does investment actually reduce risk the most? Next. So chapter 5 moves into implementation, what controls actually look like. It organizes security measures around the 4 key functions, which as we talked about earlier, is deter, detect, delay, and respond. But the important point here is not the equipment itself, it's how those controls are layered and integrated. So a single control doesn't stop an attack, but a system of controls working together does. Next. So chapter 6 focuses on what happens when preventions fail. It outlines how to build a structured incident response plan, including roles, communication, escalation thresholds, and importantly, it introduces iterative models, sort of like plan, practice, adjust, and execute. And basically the takeaway from chapter 6 is response plans must be living systems, not static documents. So, it should be a repeatable circular motion to where, you're planning for the incidents or a particular threat, you're practicing how you're going to respond to those. As you work through lessons learned, you're going to make adjustments, you're going to execute, and then the cycle will continue. Next. So chapter 7 reinforces a critical truth here. So you don't rise to the level of your plan, you fall to the level of your training. This section emphasizes drills and exercises as a way to validate procedures, identify any gaps that you may have, improve coordination, and the key idea being capability is built through repetition and testing, not necessarily just documentation. Next. And then we move on to chapter 8, the information sharing lifecycle. So chapter 8 focuses on the role of information as critical enabler of security and resilience. It introduces a continuous life cycle. So gather, analyze, share, act, and improve. That ensures information is not just collected, but actively used to drive better decisions and outcomes. So at a high level, this chapter is basically making sure the right information gets to the right people at exactly the right time. It highlights that timely and accurate information sharing is essential for both effective response and long-term risk reduction. So the key idea is that information flow must be continuous and iterative, not static. Organizations need to constantly refine how they gather intelligence, analyze the threats, and feed lessons learned back into their own security programs. So the chapter reinforces that even strong controls can fail if information is delayed, incomplete, or potentially even siloed. But if we were to take away one thing from chapter 8 is basically security effectiveness depends not just on what you know, but how quickly and effectively you share and act upon the knowledge that you have. Next slide. So chapter 9 provides a real-world view of physical security risk by examining actual incidents and attacks across the electric sector and other critical infrastructure. So what you can expect from this chapter is a series of case studies that break down how attacks occurred, what vulnerabilities were exploited, and how organizations responded. These examples range from substations attacks, insider incidents, to emerging threats like drone-based attacks. So each case is paired with specific lessons learned, highlighting recurring issues such as gaps in monitoring, delays in response, insufficient physical protection, and the need for better coordination with local law enforcement. So at a high level, this chapter is designed to help translate theory into practice. It shows how the risks discussed earlier in the document actually materialize in the field and what organizations can do differently as a result. The goal is not just awareness, but continuous improvement, ensuring that lessons learned are captured, shared with trained personnel, and are used to strengthen overall security postures and preparedness. So in chapter 9, the key takeaway here is that this chapter shows you what real attacks look like and what your organization should learn from them to avoid becoming the next case study. Next. So then we move into chapter 10 on a critical but often overlooked element of physical security programs, how to effectively communicate risk to executive leadership and secure support for security initiatives. So this chapter explains that strong security programs are not just built on assessments and controls, but on the ability to translate technical security risks into business terms that leadership can understand, such as operational impact, financial risks, and resilience. So what you can expect from this chapter and the guidance is how to communicate risks using clear, quantified, and defensible data, align security discussions with enterprise risk management frameworks, present security investments as business decisions, not just technical needs. It also emphasizes the importance of consistent language, structured reporting, and aligning security priorities with organizational goals so executives can make informed and confident decisions. So at a high level, this chapter is about bridging the gap between security professionals and the decision makers and ensuring that security is understood, prioritized, and properly funded. With the key takeaway in chapter 10 as being, even the best security program will fall short without executive understanding and support. This chapter shows how to achieve that alignment. Next. So as we move across all the chapters, several themes will stand out. So the first being the risk-based decision-making is the foundation. Layered defense is essential. Continuous improvement is always required. And security must integrate with enterprise risk management. So, and again, this is not a static model. It is an adaptive system driven by changing threats and vulnerabilities. Next slide. So how do we measure success? So throughout this document, success is defined not just by implementing security controls, but by achieving a fully aligned, effective, and resilient physical security program. At a high level, what success looks like is a program where security is directly aligned with enterprise risk management, meaning decisions about security are driven by real risk, not assumptions or compliance alone. So what you should expect to see is investments prioritized based on criticality and the threat, security measures that are defensible, cost-effective, and risk-informed, and a strong balance between preventative, detective, response, and recovery. Another key aspect of success is having mature operational capabilities, which may include well-defined and tested incident response process, adaptable security measures that evolve with the threat landscape, or continuous improvement driven by assessments and lessons learned. So equally important, success includes organizational alignment, where executive leadership understands, supports, and actively participates in security decision-making. Ultimately, the chapter frames success as a state where the organization has moved beyond basic protection to a resilient, proactive, and risk-driven security posture. So the key takeaway for this particular section is success is not just being compliant. It's having a security program that is effective, prioritized, and fully integrated in how the business manages risk. And with that, hopefully I met Brian's timeline, and I will hand it back to him.
Tony, thank you. You have exceeded my time frame, so you did well. We've left 10 minutes. We just have a couple questions just that came in. Excellent presentation, excellent white paper. Just your opinion. What's next? So I mean, did a lot of great research on this, sharing a lot of best practices. I think the paper does a great job on not like a one size fits all, but really regarding those assessments. What's next for physical security?
So what we're hoping to, at least here internally at RF, is to gauge what the entities out in the ERO are needing, what the struggles that they have are. We understand that some folks, they don't have huge, mature physical security programs, and that they may need a little bit of help along the way that don't cost a ton of money, to be perfectly honest with you. So a couple of folks internally have been attempting to put together some items here that hopefully we'll be able to release soon. That will help you give a little bit of a leg up without having to spend a ton of money. Additionally, we look to industry to try to find out the things or the gaps or the lessons learned that they may have. So this way we can evolve our own program and, help out all the other folks in the industry that may be experiencing some of the similar problems. So what's next? I would say that probably what's next is I would actually like to hear from everybody else, like out in the industry. What are you experiencing? What are some of the things that you see that you don't have a solution for? Bring them to us. Let us know. We'll make sure that we put some of the best people behind it and give it some resources and see what we can do to help everybody out as a whole.
No, that's great, Tony. I can't agree more. So especially with if all the new IBRs category 2, a lot of these, wind farms, solar, they're out in remote areas. We're used to protecting some big things, things that are more spread out. These present new challenges to us, whether it's highway access, whether you're in a valley, whatever that might be. So yeah, we are looking forward. So please reach out to us with any comments, concerns, questions you have about physical security. We would love to talk with you and see what you're up to. Tony, this is a hard one. I don't know if you have any insider information on this. I certainly don't. Is that the FAA, they came out in May with like a proposed rule about like drones and critical infrastructure. Do you have any inside information about what's next? I mean, everyone, cares about these drones attacking these substations and or flying nearby or whatever that means. What are your thoughts? We heard about the drone attack, at the UFC event. Any insider information you have?
Nothing as of yet. So I know that everybody shares a little bit of frustration because I'm pretty sure that a good majority of you have dealt with this at some point in time, whether you are remote or in, city areas. So it's something that we're pushing for to try to get some more additional information on. We understand that it is a problem. And Brian, the best I could do at this point is to say, kind of stand by. We're working on it and we're trying to get you a solution.
All right, awesome. Hey, Tony, we got a question here. Someone wants your personal opinion. What do you think is the biggest risk factor in physical security?
Oh man. I would say that trying to formulate a cookie cutter solution for everything that you own and operate. You can't just necessarily say, okay, this is the template on how we're going to protect everything that we have. It's not necessarily sustainable or affordable. In that matter, I think that it really needs to boil down to an assessment of each facility, and like the document discusses the criticality levels of those facilities and what they do for you. Custom tailored security and involving the stakeholders in early. So this shouldn't be something that's kind of overlaid on a facility after it's been created and built already. It should be a discussion from the beginning. It should be a conversation with the folks from security involved as soon as you break ground. So that way everything can be integrated in the best possible fashion, reducing some of the issues you may have down the road.